plugins versus analog. We're going to be doing a shootout today. I got the Warm Audio WA-1B tube optical compressor, and we're going to be comparing that to the plugin from Softube, the TubeTech CL1B Mark II. The results surprise me, and they're going to surprise you. Let's get into it. Yo, what's good, guys? Inswain with Inswain Audio. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, subscribe and stick around. I'm telling you, I drop gems like this every single day. You're not going to want to miss them. I don't know. That's not you. But let's jump right into this comparison. So first things first, these compressors are known for vocal tracking. They can be used for many things, but that's kind of what they're most commonly used for. They're very transparent, handle transients great. They're great for recording vocals for that reason. They just handle vocals very well. That's what I like them for. That's what I got the compressor for. And it's what I got the plugin for too, mostly. And with that being said, some common settings that people use are the attack at 12 o'clock and the release at about 2 o'clock. And then you aim for about 5-ish dBs of gain reduction max. Obviously you can do different things, but this is kind of like a popular setting that a lot of people use, and it's one that I use as well. So with that being said, I set up this test so that the analog compressor had those settings and was getting about that much gain reduction, as well as the plugin, and you can see that here. However, I did have to change, the gain and the threshold to make sure that they got the same amount of compression, but I got them to match up pretty well. Same attack, same release, same compression style. All right, so now I'll play you the plugin version. This is the version with the plugin doing the compression, and you can watch how the compressor reacts, see what it sounds like. Let's hear what that sounds like. Test. Analog versus plugins. Warm Audio, WA-1B. All right, now let's listen to the analog compressor, the WA-1B version. Test. Analog versus plugins. Warm Audio, WA-1B. All right, now for the real part. Let's play them back and forth in real time so we can really tell the difference. Then we'll break it down. Starting with the plugin version. And you'll know the plugin version is playing when this top track is highlighted blue. So check that out. Test. Analog versus plugins. Warm Audio, WA-1B. 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 All right, so let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are. My thoughts, I don't know. The compressor, the analog one, really sounds amazing. It sounds like it's louder, right? And it's not. I made sure to level match them. It has a lot more body and warmth to it, but at the same time, also clarity. A little bit more clarity, which is also almost kind of ironic, which is really surprising because it's hard to get warmth and top end. So it's doing both of those. So it's adding body and a nice little analog touch to it, but it's also a little bit more clear in my opinion, which is kind of the best of both worlds. And it brings it a lot more forward. Is the difference huge? So they're definitely different, but I don't think one is really much better than the other. I think the analog is better, but it's not drastically better. They're drastically different, but it's only like, about 50% better, I'd say. So do I think that the analog is worth it? I do think it is worth it because I think they're very different and it is better, but just because they're different doesn't mean someone else might think it's better. You might prefer the plugin version. I think they're pretty objectively very different. I think we would all agree that they definitely sound different, but which one is better is kind of subjective. And I personally think that the analog sounds fairly decently better. And I would say relatively speaking for the price of the plugin, which is I think about 200-ish versus the price of the unit, which is I believe about 1200-ish, pretty big price difference. But I think if you're going to be dishing out money for it as it is, 200 is already a lot. I think if you have the funds for it, I think that the analog is worth it, but the plugin is definitely a great substitute. And that's from this test alone. Now let me talk to you from my experience using them. Outside of this, for my experience outside using them, I think they both sound amazing. You can get them both to sound really good. I think the main difference is how they react. You might have even noticed the difference, while we were watching the visual of how they react. I think that the plugin, it doesn't quite grab everything, but when it finally does grab things, it kind of reacts a little aggressively. So you aren't able to get as much compression out of it before it chokes up. Whereas with the analog, I think you could push it a little harder and still have a transparent sound and not like noticeable compression per se. So I think with the analog, you can push it a little bit more. The plugin's a little bit more finicky, but it's not a huge difference. And then like we just did with the sound examples, When I compare them side by side here, I can hear a pretty big difference, but in use, the difference that I hear isn't drastic. So to summarize, I think the plugin is great. I still love this plugin. I still use it all the time when I'm mixing other people's vocals that weren't recorded like this. But if you have the analog or the means to get the analog, I think it wins out a little bit. And this is, just me being not biased and being honest. I love them both, so don't get me wrong. And I don't think you need to go spend $1,200 on a compressor, especially if you already own this plugin or if this is more affordable to you. And once again, this is only on vocals with one little comparison. There's a million variables. It could sound, the plugin could win on a guitar or something, right? Like it all depends, but I didn't have the means to do that testing. That's a little too extensive, but I figured I'd give you this and you could make your decision based on what you hear and kind of my background knowledge on how they react. So there you have it, guys. Plug-in versus analog with the Tube Tech. I love them both. I'm a huge fan of them. I use them all the time. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of the differences, how you heard them, what you prefer if you have them, and what you thought of the video. I'd really appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind, throw me a like and subscribe if you stuck around this long. If not, no worries. I'll get y'all tomorrow, man. In Swain with Swain Audio. Peace.